Today on Begin Boating, I'm going to remove a faulty starter from a jet ski, and we're going to show you how to get that starter going again, or you can just put a new starter in. Steps are the same except for the repair. So please like and subscribe and enjoy. Today I'm kind of messing around with a personal watercraft. It's a SeaDoo GTI LE. It's fuel injected, and what we have is the starter. When you push the starter button, you can see here I'm kind of got a bunch of stuff being taken out of there. When you push the starter button, the Bendix is not engaging, so it won't turn the motor over. The person that I bought the watercraft from said that he left water in the exhaust and broke the exhaust, and I just pulled that pipe out. He said he had it welded in. Sure enough, so there you go, big striking weld on there, but looks like a decent enough job to do what it needs to do. And so I yanked that out of there, and part of the air box, and this cross member for seat supports. I got a tractor battery in there. His battery was completely flat. I've got it charged up. It's a nice battery. And my internal light in there just died out, so I don't have a good light in there, but the starter's right down here. And I took off that upper nut there off of that front mount, and that's about as far as I got, and had forgot to video and just give an example of what I'm doing. This personal watercraft is an 03 and in pretty decent shape. We checked everything out, all electronics, everything seems to be working well. Anyway, so the deal on this thing was I saw it on Facebook Marketplace actually, and the guy just wanted to get rid of it. He needed some space, lived in the city, and it had that exhaust issue, and then he tried to start it, and then he had a starter issue. So and a starter, of course, is, like I said, down under the motor. Working on it a little bit more, and I was able to get that bolt out. There was a nut on one side, but you actually got to remove the bolt from the other side. That'd be the right hand side from what we're looking at. And then there's a mount in the back there somewhere. You can see I took the terminal off, the positive terminal. Alright, well, starter is out of the hole. We'll see if I can be able to get one back in there. Not an easy thing to do on this, honestly. Be much better just to pull the motor. Anyway, so here's the starter, but this thing is corroded a bit. I wiped it off some here at the bottom of it, but this here was frozen. I was able just now to break that loose, and I only got one hand. But this Bendix, that thing is not. See, I mean, I'm under no circumstances is that going to pull out. So the Bendix is stuck, you know, and I could free it up, and I might even do that. Lube it up and see if I can get it to be consistent versus waiting for another one to come. But if it's done correctly and polished up correctly, if it will, and I have to look at it because you can see right in here, get some focus there, doing this with my cell phone, there's some corrosion under there, so we'll see. We'll probably end up putting in a different one, but I'm going to play with it anyway since I've got it out and I don't have one here, so might as well mess with it. Anyway, that is definitely why the engine is not turning over, and once we get that done, we'll worry about actually making the watercraft run. Say I only wrenched on this thing for probably 30-40 minutes now, so anyway, we'll see how it goes. Okay, we've had I have had the starter apart here already. The collar here was the one that was stuck. Took that off. Spring was a little stiff on there too, and then there's actually a very thin washer down in there. You gotta be sure you don't drop. But when I would put the power to it, after I broke things free, this thing would kick up and it has no problem. But I took it all the way off. Let's see if I can pull that off there right quick. I won't spill that washer out of it right now. Let me just set this down. Really should have my tripod out here. Anyway, I cleaned up this shaft really good. There was a little bit of buildup in here. fired it up and used some 600 grit sandpaper and polished really well in there. Clean that up, and then this unit here is actually a one-way unit, so it'll freewheel. See if I can, I don't really have a way of doing this with one hand. So this is a one-way unit, so you can freewheel it backwards. See how I'm rotating it that way, but this way it's locked in, so that had to be freed up. So we did that. This starter should not be put back in the watercraft. However, this watercraft here is just for you guys, just to show you how to kind of decipher what's going on and get down to it, start taking things apart and see what you have to fix. In this case, it would have been far easier just to purchase another starter and bolt the new starter in. And that's no easy feat in this thing. Everything is under the engine, and you have to pull the exhaust and all that other stuff out. Not super time consuming, but anyway, this little clip here, after this piece is on, this goes, you know, down, and there's a ridge in there that this clips into that sits right there. You can see it sitting down into that opening. So when the clip is in place, this comes back up over the clip and holds there, and it keeps that clip closed and on in the keeps that ring inside that groove right there. So it traps it there, and then when the starter kicks off, this way it'll freewheel, this way it lifts up just by the torque of the motor. Just by the torque of the motor, this thing here will go up those splines. Let me show you that right quick. I should have mentioned that when it was apart. I'll take the spring off. The spring is to keep it loaded where it's pushed down and disengaged from the flywheel. So you see those screw thread basically in there? That is so that this thing, because that is also, I'm going to hold that washer in there. Yeah, back out and see if we can get some light. Yeah, you can kind of see the thread down inside there that matches this. Just by the sheer torque of this starting, it lifts that up and engages into the flywheel. You can see as soon as I touch it, it just fall right down in there once it engages with the mating thread. So then the spring, then the cap, and then the clip will go into that groove. I just can't do it one-handed. So I just wanted to show you that. After I get the clip engaged, then we'll hook it up to the battery here and let you watch it cycle so you understand how the starter works. And I may or may not bolt this back in, you know, because again, this watercraft is just for learning for the website. So I'm going to stick it back in the watercraft more than likely and show you that, you know, you can get a starter going. I wouldn't suggest you do that. I'd suggest you buy a new starter. You know, it's so much trouble to get in there and get after it. You might as well have a new starter and start from scratch. Though some of the manufactured ones from overseas are not so great. So it's better if you could buy a new OEM one. But anyway, we're going to rebuild or clean this OEM one up and stick it back in there and make sure everything is functioning properly. And if it doesn't, I'll tear it all apart and put a new one in there. But okay, so I stuck that clip back in there. There you go. You can see it up in that spot. This is fully seated, so that's all good. This is engaged. Every time that starter starts, you'll see it ride up that spline and come out. So I've hooked it, just little jumpers to the battery, so the starter just grounds right through the body, through these bolts, right through the motor. So I just hooked to the back of that with ground. This is a hot, I don't know why I don't have it in a picture. This is the hot lead to the battery. So when I touch the post where we have the positive terminal. Every time that the solenoid allows this thing to get power, this is what will happen. So we'll let it spin up now, and you'll see that kind of start drifting back, because once the shaft of the motor, you know, that instantly goes up to speed. But once this thing here starts, you know, it's the inertia of this not being able to catch up is what runs it up that spline. So once this here catches up to that speed, then you'll see it start to drift back just slightly. Except that when you are starting your engine, it doesn't do that, because now by the time it goes up there, it engages into the flywheel. It's held in place until you take the pressure off of that, and then that drifts out. So if the engine starts, that thing just is forced straight back down. So we'll start it and hold it there, and you'll see it drift back just slightly. So that is strictly because it only kicks out because the inertia is greater on the shaft itself that is directly propelled by the motor, and the gear has to play catch up. So that's all you need, is for it to go out. You don't need it to go out and be held out. The flywheel will do that. So there you go. Everything is lubed up, cleaned up, and we are going to stick it back in the watercraft. And I actually do feel pretty confident this is going to be a long-lasting repair. So we will assemble it and put the thing back into running condition, hopefully. I haven't heard it run, so they obviously did the repair on the exhaust. We're going to find out how the rest of it goes.